So I was originally going to make this video talking about helping versus enabling on a more personal level, right? Because I think we tend to have people in our lives that we might help financially that we think is helping people, but it's actually enabling them and actually hurting them. But when I started to put together the video, I realized that the government is actually doing the same things to us, but on their scale, it is super dangerous, extremely toxic, and it can lead to a world of chaos. So I definitely want to talk about all of that and more. So be sure to stick around. It's Crystal with the Cash Compass. All right, welcome back. I am here to teach you all the things that you should have learned in school about money, but for whatever reason, they forgot to mention it. Please be sure to subscribe because we talk about everything from personal finance to investing to the economy. Let's get into it. All right, so I still will break it down on a personal level because I think that will help us understand the bigger picture. Let's say you have a family member, right? And they're always coming to you. They always have this dramatic story because anytime people want to borrow money, it's always theatrical, right? So they come with you that they were doing all of this and did all of that. And because of this, they don't have any money. So they need to borrow some money from you. And you being the nice person that you are, you're like, all right, sure, I'll help you out. But then you realize that it's kind of getting, a little repetitive, right? And it's like every month or every other week, they just need some sort of money for some sort of thing. And it's like every day they have a new surprise. And it's like your bills come at the same time every month for the most part. Why are you surprised? But at any rate, you still help them out, right? At that point, you have enabled them because you have basically become an extra check, an extension, a line of credit, so to speak, right? So now this person who, maybe has to decide between paying their phone bill or going out tonight, to the club or brunching on Sunday, they're probably going to go for get lit. What we have done, because I am guilty of this, okay? We have basically enabled this person to be lazy and enable them to kind of depend on us, right? Because now they kind of keep on coming to you whenever they need something. They know you're not going to say no, so there's no incentive for them to actually be responsible to budget and manage their money properly so they don't have to get into this bind. So now they're more likely to go on vacations. They're more likely to just spend money on whatever they want to because they don't have to actually deal with any repercussions of doing those things, right? And that does not help people. It teaches them the absolute wrong thing. It teaches them that they don't have to work hard for themselves. They don't have to practice discipline, right? They can just kind of go to Auntie Crystal and get a little check. The government does the same exact thing with us. I think their motives are a little bit different. Of course, I don't know. I can't backpedal because I don't necessarily know what their motives are, but just from the outside looking in, it just seems like they want us to have a sort of dependence on them, right? Where maybe we at the personal level wouldn't want that, right? Like I wouldn't want somebody coming to me all the time asking me for money, but it seems like the government actually enjoys that and is actually encouraging that through all these programs that they have, right? So we started off the year with the pandemic. Totally get it. Everybody was scared. We locked down the place. We gave people money and you don't have to pay rent. You don't have to pay mortgage. You don't have to pay your student loans. You don't have to do anything. Here is just some money, right? Here you were unemployed. Here's some extra money. And while these things definitely help people, okay, this is definitely times we have never been through before and it's an amazing aid. When it keeps on coming, all we're doing is enabling people to be lazy, enabling people to look for that next check, that next unemployment, that next extension for the unemployment benefits or the extension for your rent moratoriums, right? And it's come to a point where out of all the revenues that we earn as Americans, 25% of that is coming from the government. For context, that number used to be 7%. And I've said this on my channel before, but for my new people, that is crazy, okay? A quarter of our money is coming from the government. What happens when that number becomes 75, right?
World domination!
They have full control over you because this world we live in is controlled by money. And that's what I'm afraid of. I'm afraid of us just being more enabled, more encouraged to just take on more debt or more encouraged to just depend on the government for all these things. And once we reach a point where it's like we need them, what happens then? My initial thought on what happens then is that we're going to have an even larger wage gap, okay? And I've explained this a lot, but I think it helps when you kind of attack it from different perspectives, right? When you have the government and they're just here, like, don't worry about it. Like, here's the money, right? Who's paying for that? The government does not make a dollar. They make their money off of us, okay? And when I say us, I'm talking about the middle class. Like I've said before, The super rich do not pay taxes because they have tax havens. You don't have to believe me. You can go look up the Federal Reserve's website, not the Federal Reserve, sorry. You can look up the government's website for our financials from 2019. I don't think 2020, I can't find 2020 yet, but once I do, I'll have a video on that. But at any rate, look at their income statement. They're showing you that we pay the majority of that. So what happens when we increase all these entitlement benefits, right? Because someone has to pay for it. There is no such thing as a free lunch. No, but this is just not just free money out of nowhere, right? It's our tax dollars going to use, and it's really the middle class's tax dollars. So as we get taxed more, because you better believe we will get taxed more. If it's not through in-your-face taxes, like, okay, we're going to increase the income tax, it's going to be through inflation, which is a silent tax, right? Things are becoming a little bit more expensive over time. You might just think that's the way of the world, but no, it's kind of like intentional taxation, but you don't have to actually get anything approved for that. You just kind of jack up the prices through these programs. And why I say you jack up the prices through these programs is because if you give these people money, right, they're unemployed, and you just keep on giving unemployment benefits. You keep on giving rent moratoriums. You waive this and you waive that. Well, now those same people are still pretty much getting maybe close, maybe even more in some situations, right? Because some people were getting paid more with the unemployment than their regular job. So you have these people making money, or at least more money, or in some cases at least just some money, but they're not putting anything back into the world, right? And I heard this from Peter Schiff, and I thought this was a great way to put it. So these people are not producing anything. They're just sitting at home, spending up all the money that they got for free. And now we have a lot of people chasing that same, like the same or even less amount of products, right? Because what you originally had was, okay, everybody's working, everybody's producing, and everybody's also consuming. So it made sense. It's kind of an equilibrium, right? Because I'm putting out into the world. So it's okay if I take some back too, right? Like I'm producing work and I'm buying products. So it's balanced. But right now what we have is not that many people working, right? Because a lot of people are unemployed. Unemployment, actually, the first time claims are actually rising right now. So we have more people unemployed, less people producing goods, but still the same amount of people chasing those goods, right? So there's less amount of things to actually purchase, but there's the same amount of people buying it. So they rush into the system, keep on buying these things, and these products, the prices of the products will rise. That's just kind of how economics works, right? So what happens to the middle class? We're still working, but now we're paying for all these different entitlement benefits, and now we're also paying higher anywhere that we go, and our income is also staying flat. Okay, so we create an economy full of people who are just dependent on the government, people who are super rich, who just don't even need the government because they just have all these different tax havens and tax credits. They actually work with the government, right? Because they're the owners, they're the top dogs. I personally believe certain corporations and banks are above politics, but that's a whole different video for another day. So they're in their own world. The poor people are just collecting everything, and then the people in the middle are paying for it all. And that's going to annihilate the middle class. So then you're going to have just the haves and have-nots, right? The have-yachts and the have-nots. And it just makes me kind of wonder, what are we turning into? There's always people who say, like, America's a corporation, America owns you, they've paid for you, a whole bunch of stuff like that, which I haven't looked into enough to really have a solid opinion on. But what I can say for sure is that if the government does have that much control over your livelihood, it would be very easy for them to come up with some sort of rule, and if you don't want to comply, they can take something away from you, right? Like, that's the problem with having so much dependency on the government and on the system, right? Because it's not even just the government, but the banking system also. What if you have to depend on debt just to get yourself out of a situation? Like, you're controlled by this corporation, or you're controlled by this entity because you need them in order to get what you want, as opposed to just having your own savings, having something outside of the system like precious metals or Bitcoin, right? Or cryptocurrencies in general. Like, when you're dependent on this system and on these politicians, they have a lot of control over you, and it won't be long before I feel like our voices will no longer have much impact because they have a lot of control over our money, and we need money to eat. It was funny, and this is kind of like unrelated, but kind of is related. And I forget, oh my God, I was at my job, and basically, not to bore you guys with the details of my job, is pretty boring, but I'm going through our paperwork and stuff, and I realized that they have actually changed the word from employees to human capital resources, okay? And it wasn't like my job thing. It was from, like, I don't know if it was the IRS or it was one of these government websites had, suggested that we change the name from employees to human capital resources. And that just it did not sit well with me at all. I just thought it was so weird that we're looked at as objects, like employees is already a bad enough word. Like, I want to be the employer, right? But human capital resource, I don't like that. But that's kind of where I think we're heading, where it's like we're just seen as objects, and we're not really, like, free speech isn't so free. We don't really have a lot of different options, in certain places, like professions where you work, you have to get that vaccine. Like, do you not own your own body anymore? Like, I don't get that. It's very, very crazy to me that our livelihood is being connected to our freedom, right? So certain things that you want to do, you can't really do, right? Like, if you want to travel, like, TSA isn't mandatory, as they say, but if you want to travel, you have to go to TSA, right? Like, how many more of these things are we going to have where it's like we have less and less control of what we can do, where we can go, what things we can bring with us, what we put in our bodies or not, because everything that we do is pretty much tied to money, and they're getting an increasing control over our money. So I don't know. Let me know what you guys think. This is just like a random, things that were going through my head today. But do you guys think that we need to kind of break away from the government? Do you personally think that we deserve these entitlement benefits because, this is our money, basically? Do you agree with them reallocating, giving the money from the middle class to people who are enabled to sit around and not do anything, right? Because they don't have to actually work for this. So do you agree with us having to work to pay all these different benefits, and then we end up in that same boat because we're getting taxed, out the a-hole, right? I want to hear from you guys, so let me know your thoughts. But that will do it. If you like this video, then please consider liking and sharing with your friends and subscribing. And if you have anything else going on, you know what to do. Go ahead and binge watch me. And until next time, keep your money up.